Business has rarely been so unpopular. Capitalism is in serious disrepute. A lot of people are convinced that businesses as they're structured today simply don't properly serve our best collective interests. Yet a world without business scarcely seems realistic. The challenge isn't to do away with business, it's to feel our way towards a better version. Here are 5 things we think are necessary for decent, humane, and profitable business culture. As human beings, there are things we need and that are genuinely good and important for our flourishing. And then there are things we merely desire that appeal to our appetites but aren't connected up with anything sincere or worthwhile. The problem is, we aren't good at identifying and holding on to the distinction. We're not very good at knowing what's really good for us. This has created a great temptation for capitalism. For the standard capitalist, it doesn't matter much what you make your money from. It could be needs or desires. You could be selling shoelaces, crude oil, nanotechnology, handguns, the collected works of Tolstoy. This is the classic defense for selling bullshit. Capitalism has not traditionally been interested in the source of its profits. The idea is to make money from supplying whatever people happen to be willing to pay for. But capitalism becomes evil when it exploits our inability to distinguish our needs from our desires. When large numbers of businesses sell people stuff that they desire, but which, in all honesty, they don't need. So, as a first basic point, good businesses should be defined not simply by whether they're profitable or not, but by what they make their profit from. Only businesses that satisfy our true needs are moral. It's hard to make any business work. It's doubly hard to make it work when you're trying not only to make money, but also to make it from needs rather than desires. Bigger fortunes could be made faster selling French fries than stone-ground bread, or running gossipy, sensationalizing newspapers than serious broadsheets. Strip clubs make more money than bookshops. Status-driven luxury brands are more successful than fair trade cooperatives. It's harder to make things which are both appealing and good, because the enterprise needs to solve 2 big problems rather than just one. The moral producer has to master both seduction and goodness. Lots of people have mastered seduction. Think of how good those ice cream and donut manufacturers are at eroding our willpower and better natures. And a fair number of people have mastered goodness. Think of those worthy, austere people who work in ecological services or run websites bringing news of appalling misdeeds in the factories of the developing world. But very few have mastered both arts, seduction and goodness. It's not impossible. It's not that goodness makes seduction impossible, or that seduction rules out goodness. It's just that the target is smaller and far, far harder to hit. But that's what we need to aim for. The great challenge of our age is to make goodness not just its own reward, but also deeply appealing to many, to fuse goodness and seduction. In the utopia, relationship therapy would therefore end up having some of the charm of a gelateria. What we want above all from our work, money aside, is that it be meaningful. What is meaningful work? A meaningful job is any occupation which gives you a feeling that you are in some way through your labour either reducing suffering or increasing the level of fulfilment of others, that you're leaving the world a slightly better place than you found it. The more meaningful a job, the less money matters. People will be ready to enlist in the army and die for the defence of their nation for a very low salary. Or think of the sacrifices made by explorers, environmentalists, nurses, or people at the literary end of publishing. Motivation comes from serving a noble cause. Good businesses are those who reward their employees not just with cash, but also with that equally valuable currency, meaning. Many people at the top of capitalism already have enough money to feed 12 generations, and yet still they push for high returns, 30% per annum rather than 3%, which would be enough to keep ahead of inflation. The important thing to grasp is that though these captains of business want to make money, deep down, if they understood themselves better, they'd realise they aren't in it for the sake of the money. What they really want is the respect, honour and love that comes in our society from having been known to have made lots of money. This holds out an important clue for how we should reform society, by making honour and respect more reliably available to those capitalists who choose to run their businesses in noble ways, satisfying needs, not desires, and giving meaning to their workforces. The way status is currently distributed directly rewards the worst kinds of capitalism. It directs honour to wealth without asking skeptically enough how the wealth was accumulated. That's something we're all responsible for when we pay undue attention to the yachts and the parties. How impressed we are by money is part of what keeps business people, who are generally narcissistic, ego-driven personalities, going. People become moral capitalists when they can accept a lower return on capital in the name of producing meaning, kindness and goodness. And we become a moral society when we give honour and respect, not just for those who've made a lot of cash any old how, but those who made a bit of cash doing good things. Typically, the price of a product or a service doesn't actually take into account the full cost of producing it, because some resources have inadvertently been given free to the producers. The land has been polluted and the workers' health destroyed, but the consumer isn't paying. We talk a lot about low prices. We don't talk enough about just prices. A just price is the price that has correctly factored in the true costs of production. In a good society, the just price would be the normal price. Whenever a supplier provides something below the just price, whenever there is, as we wrongly call it, a bargain, a shortcut is being taken somewhere. The company has to be offloading some of the cost. They must be treating someone badly. They must be skimping on quality without admitting it. As society gets collectively more moral, we should take immense care about the path any product took on its way to our lives. In a good business, the price of the product should reflect the cost of supplying a thing while treating everyone and everything, even the trees and the rivers, kindly along the way. 80% of business should, in a perfect world, come from the top 20% of our needs. At present, the overwhelming share of business activity is directed at meeting the lower basic needs, moving about, energy, food, shelter. At present, capitalism is mainly directed at the bottom layers of Abraham Maslow's famous pyramid of needs. We understand we have higher needs for love, self-esteem, creativity, and so on, but we don't usually imagine that commerce can help us. We've got a prejudice that paying for something can't be connected to goodness, but it could be. The fact is, commerce has only barely scratched the list of our true needs. We need to live in beautiful cities, we need to have good advice and psychological support, we need to manage our emotions, we need to sustain strong families across generations, we need to cultivate our minds, we need to live in societies in which it's normal to be wise, kind and self-possessed. These are vast, immense undertakings, and we have collectively a huge way to go. The fact that these ambitions don't look the same as constructing highways or building pipelines doesn't at all mean that they're divorced from work, business or commerce. They're goods and services which have to be created by ingenuity, organisation and effort, in short, by work. Far from worrying about what we might do when there is no more work, we should be preparing ourselves for almost endless labour to reach the true goal, widespread fulfilment. It's entirely understandable that many people are disillusioned with capitalism, because business as we currently know it is not as good as it should be. Our objection is not, in fact, to business as such, but to business that's bad. The response is not, therefore, to wish that business would go away, but to work to improve it so that one day it comes to properly satisfy us as consumers and as producers.